work within that, and we give them some heads up, or if it's in their wheelhouse, they can transition on a dime, right? So sometimes we don't have to worry too much about those transitions when it's in their wheelhouse, getting away to a place that they love to go. Uh, However, school brings up a lot of anxieties for people and a lot of stress for parents. We both remember it. I mean, whenever I talk about this topic, I think of it exactly as you might, which is what was it like for us? So I just want to feel free to just share on chat. What was it like for you when you had, school starting, and for yourself? And because we have to know how we feel about our own experiences in order to help our kids. We have to compartmentalize it. Sometimes we can share it and use that. Hey, when I was in school, this helped me. So there's all kinds of those things that come up for us about before school starts. So let's go through some of these strategies. And we'll get to some of today's takeaways. So um, here we go. Okay. So hopefully at the end of this half an hour, you'll have a plan for helping your child prepare and the 5 strategies on the right. So those are the 5 strategies we're going to work on today. Dive into some of those. Um, we don't want to eliminate every difficult feeling that kids have about going back to school. We just want to make them as less stressful and as open to process as possible. Um, so what does back to school mean? Back to school means a change, transitions, right? So um, a lot of kids get excited about that, but a lot of kids with autism feel stressed and anxious and nervous because of that narrow thinking. So there's a lot about just having a brain with autism that makes it difficult to feel like that the stress of going back to school is manageable. So we're going to start with some things like these transitions: bedtimes, morning routines, transportations. What about school itself and the classrooms, classmates? Who's going to be there? Who's not going to be there? What are the expectations for this new grade? Maybe it's from elementary to middle school to high school, and so on. Maybe it's preschool to elementary. One of the things as I'm talking about that I'm happy to hear about is your child's grade. That might give me some um, information here about who um, who's all on today, who's watching, and um, the ages of your kids and what they're transitioning to, so I can speak to them specifically where and when we can do that. Sensory. What about all the different changes? The smell of that school, the cleaning products. A lot of kids are already like, oh, I know I'm going to smell cleaning products as soon as I come in. Like, yep, probably. So, and then we have after school. How are those routines different or same from last year? So all this is, even though it's familiar because it happens every year, it's different every year. No year is the same as it was the year before. So even though some things are different in the big picture, they're going to be new for kids with autism, and that anxiety is going to start to rear itself. Knowing, worrying something will happen isn't the same as feeling prepared for it. So they can know something's going to happen, but it doesn't mean that they're going to feel ready for it. So our goal is to help them feel ready for it. What's the point of this talk, right? What's the point of us getting together and talking about this and keeping it forward thinking and in our mindset is that the more we prepare, the more predictable, and people with ASD brains and thinking styles prefer predictability because that lowers stress. So we definitely want to do as much preparation as possible to make things as predictable and as familiar, so we can lower that stress, keep that stress level down. All right, let's start with the first strategy. Let's see, I'm trying to see if there's any. Anna, can you send me a test chat? And
Yeah.
um, to see if it's coming in because I have my chat box open, but I am not seeing anything come through. So I just want to make sure.
I just sent it. Can you see it?
Hmm. Oh, yep, got it. Okay, thank you. Great. Okay,
There we go.
great.
Hi.
Or anybody can send me a test chat.
Did you want to
Thank you.
know the ages? I think you asked what
Sure, if
ages
people want to put in their grade, the grades in which they will be
or grades.
transitioning to, yep, that would be great. Yeah, the grades would be fine. Yeah. So if people want to just throw it out there, thank you.
That will help you.
Thanks, Logan and Alex. Yeah, great. Yep. So some
Fourth,
elementary,
seventh.
some middle school. Yeah. And I kind of figured we'd be in that elementary, middle school, but I also don't want to miss anybody who's transitioning to other grades. So thank you guys. Okay, let's get to that first strategy here. All right. So time is tricky. Time and space is very tricky for kids with ASD. It's abstract for a lot of kids. So depending on their preference for reading time, sometimes it's digital, which works, and analog works better. So help your child figure out which time works best, and then which in this example here we have a calendar, so that's like big picture. So help your child feel like they can manage this transition using time and days and numbers and things that are kind of grounding and things that are concrete. So we want to help them start to see when things are going to be changing. And that's why we do the calendars. Too far out makes more stress. So there's a sweet spot probably, and your child's sweet spot. It might not be a month out. It might not be 2 weeks. It might be a week or 5 days out. The younger the rule is generally the younger the child, the shorter that transition. As kids get older, abstract thinking does start to take place. So they're thinking about it, they see it, they're more aware of it, they hear about it. So it's okay to also start, 2 weeks or so, um, and they'll be getting schedules or they'll see something and um, come through. So it's okay to start putting these things on the calendar for the big day. Um, so adding the events that matter, um, tours, open houses. Um, Wednesday, when are we gonna pick out the backpack that we're gonna use? Let's sort of like pull everything together and see what we have for the beginning of the school year. Um, what if you guys have as a visual um, strategy that works in your house? One of the things I like about presenting to groups of parents is that you share things with each other that you can all benefit from. So if you find something like what works for you around time, does it work does a week in advance work or a month in advance? And if so, which method of schedule or visual schedule do you and your child prefer? Feel free to share that in the chat. Okay, so make time visible. So we want to be scheduling that. Here's my visual um, schedule. So feel free to download that from my website, just a visual schedule. We want to be making these, shifts and transitions gradually. So we can pick any one of these things. And in fact, maybe have them choose from which one do you want to start with? Do you want to start with a bedtime? Do you want to start with a breakfast routine? Do you want to do some uh, wake up times that are kind of helping them gear in and be thinking about this a little more frequently? Um, so again, as the parent reminder, you don't have to recreate the whole day. Just start moving this from the back of the brain to the front of the brain, right? So getting it where they can start to imagine themselves being in this situation soon. I'll read Logan. Thanks for the chat there. Visual schedule for morning and evening with pictures and words, typical day schedules by time and more detail. and a month-long calendar. That's great. You have a number of different visuals for a number of different things. So, and visuals are so great. I love visual schedules too. So, hooray! I'm a big fan of visual schedules. Pictures of kids doing these things are really great for visual schedules. Having them taking a picture of them doing something like getting out of bed, and you can even make it fun and funny, and big yawns or funny morning faces, or um, what do they look like in the morning, get their hair all kind of goofy. That would not be one for me at this stage any longer, but your kids probably have some great hair in the morning, so get that going, have some fun with that. um, and then the hygiene list can start, pulling that together. You have maybe some main three, and then add a few more as they continue to get closer to the beginning of school. Okay. Strategy number two, rehearse. Many of you who I talk with about calm compass strategies, rehearse is a favorite move strategy of mine. I love rehearse. Um, it's that practice, practicing things, um, being active, being physically doing some things and not talking too much about it. So, how do we help them just rehearse and practice some of these strategies? Um, you could even use time and timers. You can play around with that and have some fun with. Let's see how long it takes you. Let's start a timer. Now, that might get an automatic no, because then we have pressure, and we have to perform, and that could mean a whole nother level of anxiety. So um, as we come up with some fun ideas for ways that kids can practice and rehearse, it might also trigger some anxiety and some stress. So just be ready for that. It's okay. We're just trying some different things, and it's okay to try things out. But some kids might be like, all right, let's see if I can get under 15 minutes, and then I can sleep longer. I had a kid literally who was like, he had his pants laid out on the floor. He had his shoes laid out. And what he wanted to do, his goal was to sleep and stay in his bed as long as possible. So all he had to do is hop into his pants. It was quite cute and quite funny. Um, and that lasted probably a month or two. And then it was hard to sustain, but it was really funny. And that was his way of getting ready, kind of mentally, like getting psyched up for the beginning of the school year. Okay. So, uh, rehearse is a great strategy. Any way to rehearse getting ready for the day, that morning routine. Um, what shoes are comfy? Rehearse getting ready for the bus or the car, even on, bad weather days or tricky weather days. Okay. Instead of us doing the reminding and the talking about helping them through all these things, let the schedule work for you. Leverage that schedule. Uh, let that be the thing that we go to, so we can point to, we can say, hey, I'm not sure if that's on the schedule or not, or I'm not sure what order this is for whatever it is you're doing, whichever hygiene. So use the schedule as the boss and not you, and use yourself as the helper, as the conduit between what they need to get done on that schedule, and accomplishing those things on the schedule. You're the problem solving kind of mediator, and then you are less the authority for things that don't need authority. This is just really organization, and it's transition. It's mental shifts, and there's really no authority for that. It's just a process. And we know that they're a little worried about it, as are we, and that's okay. So, creating a school landing zone. I think that's just about organization too, finding that place where they get organized, because the more organized and the more they understand their space, the better they will feel about retrieving it, or remembering where it is, where to put things, and where to, again, retrieve that thing that they set down or put down. If we just think about ourselves and how important that is just for us adults, um, it's equally important for kids. It's just one less thing that they mentally have to um, think about. All right, let's go to the third strategy here. Strategy number three. let's talk about that school environment, refamiliarizing, or if it's a brand new school. I think many of you have a brand new school today. Um, let's refamiliarize yourself with what, where, and how that school's laid out. A lot of schools have gone through some renovations over summer. It's usually a big time for school changes. I know a lot of schools in the district I live have been either brand new schools or just a lot of renovations. So they are they're different, and so just going through those and walking through those. And let's just talk about open house for a sec, as long as we're on this page, because that is the thing we want to do is rehearse walking through their classes and walking to classes. Open houses, in a general way, can be very overwhelming and very stressful, especially for larger schools. So consider an open house maybe not the best time, or or if you can get to it before the open house, it might be a good place to recognize and be familiar, or just go and not expect a whole lot from the open house. They may stay there for 15, 20 minutes. It might be better for you to go to an open house without them. The thing is, we want to be available to let them not be overwhelmed by touring the school. So we can talk with them about, you want to go there when there's a bunch of people or when there's just us? Let's go there. Let's see the school when it's just us first. I think most people can do that with arranging that through the building principal or other administrator. So make your arrangements and with those at school, and try that perhaps before the open house, and then see if you can get to the open house, because it is active and there's a lot of energy. Again, it might be too much, but it also might be positive and a little infectious. So, um, but again, rehearsing, where do you go in? Where does your backpack go? Does it go in your locker? Do you carry it around all day? Um, and so on and so forth. So that school environment, as you're thinking about that, there might be some changes. Is anybody going through some new school changes this year? And do you have any questions about that? Feel free to put that in the chat as we get to that. Um, all right, let's talk about sensory integration. It is everywhere. Sensory information is ubiquitous as the oxygen. It's just, and wherever we go, we are integrating senses. We're using our senses all the time. So when we're in school, we're just kind of recalibrating, getting to know what they are again: the smells, the sounds, the sight, from light to sounds. Um, and so um, we want to be helping kids, just kind of drawing their attention to those that sensory input again, and what they might need. Uh, I had a kid client a few years back who wanted a goal for himself to adjust so that the bells or the sounds of the transition or the class changing bell would not bother them. And so he went during a couple times and made arrangements with the school administrators to be in the school when they were testing the bells. And so it was just him and his mom and maybe a helper at school that could just get a little bit of um, work around that, a little bit of exposure therapy, if you will, to some of the bells and sounds without having to integrate everything all at once, all the kids, all the sounds. And it made a difference. So it's really nice to be able to get that and use the school staff to help them integrate those sensory challenges. Um, Again, even though they had them, 3 months ago or 2.5 months ago, uh, we lose it, and you have kind of a different child, a different brain, and so they might even notice that they're not as sensitized by some of those things that they were the year before. Those are good things to reflect and point out. Okay, sensory integration, sensory strategies. Sensory strategies we should probably be talking about too. So make sure that we go through. Maybe they might not need the same sensory strategies that they did last year. We can review all those things. Um, and if they do, that's also fine. So, all right. Feel free to think about any sensory integration questions for the Q&A part. Managing stress is important for everybody. And my stress book does a really concrete job of finding those levels, those colors. So feel free to look at that. Um, and if your school has, and your school support staff has someone or has a way of talking about stress, integrate that in their kind of program at the beginning as soon as possible. Trying to find out which parts of the day are most stressful and which parts are not. And there'll be a lot of tweaking in the first few weeks of that transition to school. And so we want a communication tool for that. So my stress book and other ways of communicating stress is a good strategy. So if you have another method for that, use that. Start integrating that for different parts of their day. Um, okay. All right, we're getting close to the end here. So strategy number 4. Hey, this is a great activity. I actually did this today with a teenager. I wasn't really thinking about doing it today, but it just worked out because we were talking about school transitions. So we did the column and we said, hey, what's routine and what's different? Um, what's going to be the same? What's going to be changing for you? So we want to know what's familiar and what's different. And the reason we want to know what's familiar is because kids often don't acknowledge what's familiar. And what's familiar is what brings that stress down. So the more things we can identify as familiar, and then guess what we're doing with what's changed? We've now identified, we've pointed out what's changed. We've also made what's changed a little familiar, a little predictable. So change can be, in a funny way, a little predictable. And so what we're doing is we're reducing surprises. Surprises kind of peak or trigger anxiety for people with ASD in a pretty big way. So let's find those things that are familiar. Could be, again, so many different things. Um, the child today, the teenager today said some of the classmates were familiar. In fact, he thought one of the teachers was going to be familiar. And then his parents said, actually, no, that's going to be in the change column. So we had to move a couple things and adjust a couple things. But guess what? Now he has kind of a visual for what's familiar and what's not, and what's changing or what's going to be different. So it's not the whole school experience that's going to be new and familiar. It's just going to be parts. And so whenever there's a tricky part, we want to break it down to things that are different or things that might need a little extra attention for that transition. And then we can turn it into, at the bottom tip there, into problem solving. Instead of managing that anxiety, we can just move that right into problem solving and how to make that thing that is different or into something positive. Okay. The last strategy, number 5. Well, we've had 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours of a pretty full school day. And I know what I need after work is some downtime. I need something to do. I need something. If I'm not, I kind of wander around a little bit like, what do I do? Do I do this? Do I do this? Do I do this? So So I think about kids when they come home from school and they're overwhelmed after all that sensory stuff and a lot of social activity. What's great for them at the end is a plan. They might not know what that plan is. So feel free to run through just some visuals. And in the beginning, the first few weeks, we can make that some suggestions, some light suggestions. So after school, you have these 3 choices, and then here you have a couple of choices. So it doesn't have to be hour to hour, very hardcore. It can just be um, some strategies that you know and that they know help them through a difficult day. And it might not be talking about their day. So leave that one near the bottom. That will come out probably in some way, shape, or form, or that can wait till later. Um, but a great question for when they get home is, what's next? What do you want to do to decompress after a big day at school. And they're looking then forward instead of behind. They'll talk about a great thing that happened at school that day. Um, and if not in that minute, then they will later on. Let's get to what's going to help them transition from school to home, because that's another transition. So there's some ideas. What does my child need right after school? Another place to kind of think about that. Um, I remember a child one time came home and took a shower and took a bath, or took a bath, and just kind of that water time, middle schooler. But that really helped them calm and kind of, we use it as a little bit of a metaphor as he got older, like washing away that day. That was a lot for them. And that was, it ended up being kind of an interesting metaphor as he um, got older as well. You could use that as just kind of like I need to cleanse from that experience. That was a lot, and it helped make kind of a nice transition to the next thing that they did. So really marked time, if you will, that he was doing something else, something different, instead of jumping right into more schoolwork or more homework. If you will notice, I am a little biased on not doing homework right after school. It really is, the child's preference, and um, some kids are really preoccupied with that, so they really do want to spend a few minutes on some schoolwork. I don't know any of those kids, but I'm just imagining that as soon as I say one child, I know there's a child out there that comes home and is preoccupied with doing schoolwork and has to get their schoolwork done, or they won't feel complete and be able to move on. So allow that for those kids. Um, but most kids need something else to do, some decompression. Okay, what is your back to school plan? What can I make more predictable? What can we rehearse? What part of the school can we make more familiar, less stressful? What sensory or emotional stresses can we anticipate and predict? And what will help my child recover after the school day? So those are the 5 questions that you can think about and to help you with your transition plan. Hey, a child and a person can be nervous and prepared, right? Successful preparation doesn't mean your child walks into school with no anxiety, right? So this just helps them feel more confident about attending to that transition and that lower stress. Here's just some things to start this week for you. If you need anything to visualize for starting your strategy this week, create the visual calendar, rehearse one school routine, make the school and its sensory environment more familiar, less stressful for your child. See it, practice it, visit it. Hopefully the preparation you put in will make those transitions positive for your child. Okay, well, that's all I have for the formal part of the presentation. I would love